the Across the Pod NFL podcast. It's time for another team season preview, and this time it's a turn of the Chicago Bears. And with me, I've got a returning guest, a well-known member of the podcast. Back with me today, it's a good friend in Luke Campbell. How are you, mate? How are things?
Hey mate, how you doing? Yeah, I'm good, mate. Yeah, how are you?
I'm good. Yeah, we were talking off camera about the fact I'm going to America in a few weeks. So literally in a week and a half time, going to Vegas, LA, San Fran. So yeah, just get ready for that. Really, I say get ready. Everything's there. Just getting the spending money transferred from savings onto my card and stuff like that. And yeah, just packing will be the only thing left to do. Looking forward to that. Vegas, I'm not the biggest gambling man, but I definitely am planning on going to a few casinos, a few. I may even try and join a poker table. Now, my knowledge is
You
very
gotta do
little,
it,
so I don't
man.
know how long I would last, but I'm very intrigued by that prospect, and yeah, it should be good. Should be good. And you're going to a couple of games as well, both involving the Giants, funny enough, in Arizona and San Francisco. But yeah, looking forward to it. Looking forward to it, and the season in general, which starts obviously be starting when I'm out there. So I'm going to try and find a sports bar to watch that opening game with the Chiefs and the Lions, and then obviously then hopefully somewhere on the Sunday as well. But I believe on that day, maybe traveling to San Diego on that day, or maybe it's the day afterwards. But yeah, either
Yeah.
way, I'm looking forward
It's
to
a
it.
tough life, mate, isn't it? It's a tough
Oh, it's
life.
so tough, so tough.
But
Yeah, it's you know, life's really hard.
oh, mate, it's tough. It's tough. The Cardinal Stadium is pretty awesome, by the way. So I think you'll love it. It's really, really nice. So yeah, I think you'll really enjoy it. But I think the games will be awesome as well. There's nothing like a live NFL game, right? I mean, I'm
Mm.
off to see the Bears at the end of September. I'm going to see the Bears Broncos, and I can't wait actually. So it's much the same as you. It's just excitement now. I wish it was here tomorrow, but that's the way it goes.
And of course, you mentioned going to the Chicago game against the Broncos. Is Chris coming with you for that one?
No, 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 no. It's just a little holiday for myself and the wife, and she's already said she's not coming to the game. Although she kind of vaguely threatened to come with me, but I was like, "No, you're okay. Honestly, you're fine." But no, it's the last time I was actually at a game was about 10 years ago, at a Bears game in person in Chicago, and that was the Seahawks when they beat us in overtime, and they were unplayable that day. So this time I'm hoping for a little bit better against the Broncos. That's what I'm hoping for. So we'll
Yeah,
see.
yeah. And of course, you did go to the game recently in the Super Bowl. Of course, so if you haven't checked that one out, we did a recording about that just after you came back from Arizona. So if you want to listen to
Yeah.
a first-hand experience on how it's like to experience the Super Bowl, go back and listen to that one, and you can find out Luke's experience at the game. And of course, before we go on to the ins and outs of Chicago, of course, new stadium coming up for the Bears. Soldier Field is being replaced. I believe it's on the same site, if not a different site. But all I've seen so far is just a video of their projected how it's going to look, their sort of virtual sort of prediction of how it's going to look, and all. It looks amazing, and it's got all the still keeps all the skyline sort of there, which is one of the best
Yeah.
things about sort. Even though I went in the nighttime, and I did miss that part of it. I've seen pictures in the daytime in day games.
Yeah.
It just looks like an incredible, and that's one of the reasons why it's my favorite stadium in the NFL, even still to this day. So yeah, but what's your thoughts on that? Are you happy to be moving, or are you one of the fans that do want to stay in Chicago? I know there's not many of them, but how do you stand on that?
I mean, it's an interesting question actually, because from a sort of franchise point of view, there's nothing quite like the setting of Soldier Field. Even though, I mean, when I went, it was shown its age, so goodness only knows what it's going to be like now. I mean, it is, it's quite ramshackle these days. So I'll be interested to see what it's like now. But even when I went 10 years ago, it wasn't the best. But the setting was unbelievable. It really was, and there's nothing like the atmosphere inside the stadium itself. So I do wonder what it's going to be like in the new stadium. But at the same time, I can see the advantages of having a brand new stadium and all of the sort of attraction around that, because I think it just makes it better for the team. And if they get the build of it right and the atmosphere, it could arguably be an even better atmosphere than Soldier Field itself. So it's exciting. It's exciting that they're willing to do that, and they're not relocating the franchise. Obviously one of the founder members of the franchise. We wouldn't want to see them move away from the Chicago area. So I'm excited, but I'm also a little bit sad to see the back of Soldier Field. But that's the way it goes. You can't stand in the way of change at times. That's just the way it is. But it's fun. It'll be fun, I think, to go, and I can't wait to go to it actually once it's built. That'll be
Yeah,
my next aim.
I can imagine. I'm actually going to plan on going to it because I'm hoping this year to complete the stadium set, and I want to try and keep that going when the Bills open their new stadium and when the Titans do the
Yeah,
same thing. So, and I
totally.
love Chicago, and I had a great time when I went there. So for me, definitely going to plan on going there. Maybe maybe if Bears play the Dolphins, we could get a flight together and go to a game, and
Good work. I'm up for
yeah,
that. I'm definitely up for that. Yeah, yeah. Anytime. I just need to get sign off from the boss, the
yeah.
wife boss. That's you know.
And of course, me and you are still planning if both our teams make the Super Bowl this year. We'll be in Vegas in February. So
Let's do it, man.
yeah,
Let's totally do it. I'm sure it'll be fine. As long as I win the lottery, it'll be all good.
yeah. I'm sure there's some bank we can rob if we need to.
Oh yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
Right, going into the Bears and the current off season with the team. Now, if I missed anyone out, do correct me. But the main outs that include N'Keal Harry, Riley Reef, Byron Pringle, and the main ins include the likes of Tremaine Edmonds. Oh, and sorry, David Montgomery has also departed from the
Mhm.
Bears. And then the main ins include Tremaine Edmonds, and of course the big one, which was via that trade that moved down from the first overall pick to low down in the draft. I believe it was ninth with the Panthers, was to get DJ Moore, a wide receiver, in for Justin Fields. Now, for that, obviously, I don't know whether you've heard Steve's appearance yet on our Eagles podcast, but he basically calls Justin Fields a Jalen Hurts off wish. I don't know what your thoughts are on that one, and whether you think DJ Moore can be the guy like Josh Allen, like a Jalen Hurts, like a Tua to progress with the addition of a top wide receiver.
Steve just likes to say it to incite people, though, to be fair to him, because we've done this often enough on the hairdryer treatment podcast. So that he's always at the wind up half the time. No, to be fair, there's no denying Jalen Hurts his class and how great he's been. And, I've seen it firsthand, and he really is an unbelievable player. I think Fields is of the same kind of mold. He's very mobile and stuff. But what I do think this year is I think you'll see a change in the way that they do their game. Last year we really had nothing at all apart from him and Montgomery, and really, Mooney, although I like him, he's not a WR1, not by a long stretch. So I think adding DJ Moore is making a huge difference to the threats that we have. I think you'll see more of Claypool, although we'll talk about that a little bit later. It's still, the jury's still out on him, but I think he could be very good, especially if he's not the main sort of focus of attack. So I think you might see a lot more, throwing rather than him using his legs, and I'm happier about that, because historically, any QB that is mobile is much more likely to get injured, and I would not like that at all. And I think that's the big risk for any of these teams with mobile quarterbacks. And we are no exception really in that side of things. But it does give us a good dual threat. So he is, I suppose, he is like a Jalen Hurts light, I suppose, in some ways. But it's no coincidence that he's like one of the top QBs now in terms of fantasy because of his dual threat there. And I like that. And I think they'll use it to an extent this year, but I think you'll see a lot more throwing. And hopefully that'll give us a bit of a better balanced offense overall.
Yeah, I agree with you completely. And, you've gone out and got, with that trade down, you got Darnell Wright, an offensive tackle from Tennessee, 10th overall.
Yeah.
And obviously that's going to be a big part, I think, in protecting Fields, because looking at your running back room, I know you've got the likes of Khalil Herbert, but let's be frank, he's not an elite running back. Basically, he's not someone you're going to look at and think he's going to win you a game, but he's still fairly serviceable. He's still fairly good. So that's going to mean Justin Fields will have to obviously use his own legs as well as throw the ball. And I think DJ Moore, the fact that we went out and got him, shows their intention to use him in the throwing game as well. So for that, obviously, you've got DJ Moore. You brought in Robert Tonyan as well via free agency. It's looking like a better
Foreman as well.
Sorry.
Donta Foreman as well as
another
running back. I wouldn't be surprised if you see a bit of a share there at running back between Herbert and Foreman, for instance, with Rashawn Johnson coming into the mix as well, because he's quite well regarded as well, and I think a bit of a steal in terms of where we got him in the draft. So you might see a bit of a running back committee there, but that's not a bad thing, actually. It's not a bad thing, and especially if you've got the mix there of Field's been able to run as well. I think it could be really interesting. Although I think Foreman's best days are behind him. But I do think he'll be good as a mentor to the other guys on the roster. I don't see anyone else really being a factor in the running back room, but I think it's interesting all the same.
And do you worry about the fact that yes,
loads of innings in the draft.
And do you worry about the fact that yes, you've got more in, and I think Komet and Tonyan are good tight ends. I don't think they're like a Travis Kelce or George Kittle. But do you worry about the situation where you're up against a team where they do double team DJ Moore? Do you worry about that when they do double team? Because right now your second best wide receiver probably is Chase Claypool, which is not really saying an awful lot. So does that worry you at all? The fact that yes, you've got more in, you've got the likes of Komet, but do you worry about games when Moore is taken out by a cornerback and neutralised by being double teamed, etc.? Do you worry about that? The fact that if Moore can't get involved in the game or he's not allowed to get involved in the game, who else he feels are going to throw to?
I mean, that's a very good question. It's something that kind of did occur to me, and I felt as if we could have, if we were serious about competing this year, we could have signed another, tier one wide receiver. But I suppose the one thing that I would say, I think, is that Mooney's quite pacey. I think Claypool put up good numbers, before he moved. Last year was a bit of a write-off for him. He could potentially come back to a bit of form, but we drafted a guy called Tyler Scott, who's a bit of a speedster as well, and he's somebody that might be a bit of a dark horse in terms of being, somebody who we could look at to where Moore's getting double teamed to have a bit of a pace on the outside and stuff. But you're right, there is a difficulty there. The only thing that I would say is that I think there's a possibility of them playing two tight end sets with Tonyan and Komet there in those sorts of situations to give you, the possibility of other reception targets, and that's a possibility that you might see them, putting out there. I've seen it written a few times actually, but I'll be interested to see week 1, week 2, see what happens. You can't really tell much from pre-season, but I do think there'll be certain tactics anyway to allow us to mitigate that. And if they are double teaming Moore, then it does mean there's more space for someone else to produce something, or even for them to play action, for instance, and use a lot more play action in there to make it work.
Yeah, and I think with Herbert, you can use that disguise of using him or someone else like Donta Foreman, for example. And I do think that may be the way to go. And I think we've seen a lot of teams do that with success. I mean, the Titans did it for years when they were reaching championship games, and like with Henry and throwing off to AJ Brown. I think you can do that, and also you can even use Fields' legs in play action game as well. So I think overall that's only positive about. But of course, it is a tough division. The NFC North is, even though Rodgers has left, it's still very much tough. You've got the Lions who are on the rise. You've got the Vikings who won the division with 13 wins last year, and I think the Packers, they may have a tough year, but you never know. So it's a tough division. And I'm very excited for this division to see who can actually win it. But for you, of course, in terms of the defense, you've got a defensive-minded coach in Matt Eberflus, who his first head coaching gig was last year. Obviously, worst record in the league. He came after 3 or 4 years with the Colts as their DC. Does that worry you at all? The fact that Dan Campbell's more expensive head coach, Matt LaFleur's more expensive head coach, and Kevin Connell's the same, but he had way more success in his first year. So does that worry you at all about Matt Eberflus, and does he bring you any concern going into 2023? The fact that he's only really had 1 year, and that year was pretty terrible.
Well, yes, we ended up with the number 1 draft pick, but if you look at it, there was about 4 or 5 games where it was, I think it was at least 4 or 5 games where we were like, it was a 1-score game. And there was a lot of high scoring games as well where we lost, I think it was, 35-32 to the Dolphins. I think it was something like that. I can't remember exactly the scores now. But I was reading a piece about it this morning, and it's really interesting actually, because we were so close in a lot of games, and you've got to think this year that, I mean, I like Eberflus. I think he's made a lot of the right calls. I think last year he was I think Ryan Poles had to make a number of moves to clean up the roster, right? So that, especially defensively, losing, Roquan Smith and Mack and Quinn, were tough to take because you just had no QB rush whatsoever. There was no pressure really on the opposing QB, so we were an easy target to score points against, really. But what was encouraging for me was that we were scoring lots of points last year, and it was just that we couldn't defend really. We have, in my opinion, made a lot of steps forward in terms of improving our overall defensive side of things. I mean, there's a lot of really good players there. And Ngakwe, I think, is a good signing for the sort of money. He may not be a totally tier one edge rusher, but he's going to do a job for us. And similarly, I think signing the likes of Edmonds, TG Edwards, and stuff like that are good signings to help us kind of reach the next level. And if you look at it, the Bears have got a really young roster, one of the youngest really, overall. So they're bound to take a step forward, really. So I've got a lot of faith in Flus himself. I think he's going to do a good job, and I think defensively you'll see an improvement from us. But I also think that Poles has made a lot of good moves. The only one you could really legitimately criticise was the trade for Claypool, and again, that was only really because he gave up a high second round pick for him. I think if it had been a bottom of the second round pick, you would have said that's pretty decent value for someone who may have potential. And I think a lot of Bears fans would probably agree with me that a high second round was probably a bit in the high side for Claypool, but it might be forgiven if he has a great year this year. So I do think we'll improve this year. Whether we'll win the division or not, I don't think so, but I think we'll certainly be more competitive. I mean, I'm expecting 7 wins minimum this year, and I think that seems to be the kind of the consensus amongst anyone I've read, that a minimum of 7 is what you're looking for. So if we squeeze another couple of wins out of that, suddenly you're starting to look like you could make it through the wild card, for instance. I don't think the Vikes will be as good this year. They were the recipients of extreme good luck last year. They can stick skull wherever they like, by the way, incidentally. But I don't think they'll go 13 wins. They're not as good a team. So they'll probably win less games. The Packers, boo, definitely won't win as many games. Although I've heard a lot of good things about Love, which I'm not loving much. But I just can't see them being anywhere near as good this year. They'll 9 wins is probably their top, from everything I've read. And the Lions are the biggest overrated team in the history of the world. Everyone thinks they're awesome, but they are not going to be, right? They are totally not going. You can revisit this next year, but they are not winning the NFC North. You heard it here first. There's no way, no chance. They're not even half as good as they think they are. Everyone's hyping them up, but they're not, right? This is a Bears fan saying this, but honestly, they are not. But if they win it and they come back, I will happily wear a Lions shirt. I will happily.
Right,
there you go.
That is happening. That's the soundbite we need. That is happening.
Yeah, confident predictions are us.
Yeah. So before we go into your win-loss tie segment, just you mentioned about the tough losses, and I think you're right, because looking at your losses from last year, you lost. You lost by some games. You did lose by more than double-digit scores, but you beat, albeit beat Houston by 3 points, but you only lost by 7 points to the Vikings. You lost by 6 or 7 points against the Commanders. You did give up 49 points against the Cowboys. You put up 29. Yeah. You lost by 3 points against Miami, 1 point against Detroit, 3 points against Atlanta. 9 points against the Packers in week 13, and there was a 5-point loss in week 15 against the Eagles. And there was a couple more games towards the end where it was hope was lost at that point. A long stretch. Actually, the last one you had was in week 7, so that shows how poor was. But you were, as you said, you were still having these games, taking teams close. I think if you add DJ Moore, I can see at least being, as you say, at least being 7 wins or more. But speaking of which, we are heading to our final segment, which is going to be our win-loss tie section. So every fan predicts their team's game. We're going through each game and having a win-loss tie answer. Now, Luke, you came on last year. So your record was, the actual real-life record was 3-13-1. Do you remember what yours was at all?
Oh, it was ridiculous. I'm pretty sure I was the most optimistic guy in the world. I'm sure I predicted like 8 wins or something, maybe 9 wins.
Yeah, 9 and 8. Yeah, 9 and 8. So it's you aren't the first person to have this happen. We had a Broncos fan who got the same sort of experience, but Yeah, it's not.
I am tempted to just say every time you say a game, I'm just going to say win and
Mm,
just be done with it. Yeah, just,
yeah,
you know.
don't blame you. So week one, you do face the Green Bay Packers at home, win, loss or tie.
My heart says win. My heart says win. And I'm going to go win actually because it's Love's first real game. And I think he's going to crumble under pressure. We're going to win that one. Let's do it. Come on.
Hey, so in week two, you're on the road to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
We might win that because they might be sucking badly this year.
Mm.
They could potentially be the worst team, actually. Potentially. So we might win that actually, but it's tough. I'm going to say win because I'm optimistic.
Well, if you do beat the Buccaneers, do you think this time round Baker Mayfield will get confused over what down is? Do you think that will happen this year, like what happened to Brady a couple of years ago? Do you think he'll also get as confused with what downs it is?
I, I mean, it's interesting actually that the Bucks are looking at starting Mayfield because this is kind of like the last chance saloon for him, really, isn't it? He's got to really make his name here, and whether he will or not, I don't know because I think I just don't know if he's got it, to be honest. So it's an interesting question. All of this to do with the Bucks. If I was a Bucks fan, I'd be very worried this year for sure.
But then again, I said it before in our Rams episode that I would take a bad year if it meant winning a Super Bowl. Like if you could tell me, Dolphins could win a Super Bowl in 3 years' time, but then the next 3 years after that were terrible, I would take that. And I'm sure you'd be the same with the Bears or most fans
Every
would be.
fan would. Every
Yeah.
fan would, mate. Honestly, yeah.
Well, I think the Bears have had it the last 25 years, haven't they?
Yeah,
Since
that's right. Yeah,
1985. So week three is probably the hardest test of the whole season on the road to the Kansas City Chiefs.
that's a lose all over. There's
Yeah.
no way we're going to win that one.
Week four is a game you're going to at home to the Denver Broncos.
That's a tough one. I think, unfortunately, I think we're going to lose that one because I think Peyton's got the magic mix that's going to bring the Broncos back. Chris is going to love me saying this, actually. He's going to rub it in forever. But I rate Peyton really highly, and I think he'll rejuvenate the Broncos, and I think they'll do really well this year. I think so. That'll be a loss, sadly.
Hey, so week five, you're on the road to the Washington Commanders.
I think we'll win that one actually.
Okay. So that means going into week six up against the Minnesota Vikings, which is a game that actually will be in the same day. Hopefully, me and you will be meeting up for the first time in person at home.
I know. That's a home game. That'll be tough. We could conceivably lose that. I mean, the Vikes are, much as I like to disparage them, they're still a pretty good team. And it's going to be a tough ask to win that. So I think I might be realistic and say lose, even though my heart's screaming win-win.
Are you looking forward to the London game this year?
Oh yeah, totally. Yeah. I mean, it's good. It's also it'll be nice just to catch up with with everyone as well. And as I say, we're looking forward to meeting up and catching up and having a couple of beers as well. But I think the atmosphere of the London games is always the thing that really excites me. Everyone wears their shirts like a prize, like a trophy, and it's always fun to see how many different team shirts and stuff that you can spot over the years, and even the old, some of the older franchise teams and stuff like that, and European teams as well. So it's really cool. I love the atmosphere. Can't wait, actually. Really can't wait.
Yeah, same here. I mean, I had to sell one of my tickets, unfortunately, but I'm still going to 2 of the 3. And I'm hoping, fingers crossed, provided it all goes well, I'll be actually getting a media pass for that game against the Ravens and Titans, which would be amazing.
Cool. Yeah.
But what I love is that when I first started going to games, I was often going on my own, or occasionally with my dad, and it was a case where you would meet people, but only really through sitting next to them in your seat. But what I've loved is since doing a podcast, in lockdown and further, I've sort of met more and more people, and I've met so many, and I think that there are quite a few actually people who've been on this season previews alone that could be going to the game. I mean, Shane Harris, our Ravens fans, going to the game for obvious reasons. Oliver Ken, our Cardinals fans, is going to the game. So there's quite a few people that I've had on the podcast that are going to be at the game, and some I've met in person now, some I haven't. So that's what I love now, is that there's a real community, and I think there's definitely a nice one that you get in our version of football. I think it's a bit more hostile and a bit more territorial when it comes to football, soccer. But I think with NFL, everyone just loves watching the sport. Everyone's there to celebrate the sport, and that's what I love. And I think it's a great chance to meet people and just meet everyone in the community. And I think the more I've got to know people, the more I've enjoyed going to these events. So yeah, it should be a good day.
And completely agree with that. I think that's the thing about it, is there's much more of a community sense about it, and even if there's team rivalries and stuff, it's all in really really good natured, and even the Packer fans I can put up with. I mean, that's saying something, but but no, in all seriousness, it is great, and the community and the camaraderie in the UK NFL scene is something else. It's really good fun. So yeah, just totally can't wait now.
Yeah, should be a good day. Week 7 is a home game once again, but this time it's against the Las Vegas Raiders.
I'm going to say lose on that one. Tough one, because I think it might be a lose. I think it'll be close, but I think we might lose that.
Okay, so week 8, you're off to LA in the West Coast, take on the Los Angeles Chargers at SoFi Stadium.
Oh, that's a lose as well. They're going to be too good this year, aren't they?
Okay. Week 9, on the road at the Superdome against the Saints.
I think we could win that.
Okay,
I think so.
Week 10 is the team you traded down with the first overall pick in the Carolina Panthers at Soldier Field.
I think we'll win that.
Okay. Week 11 is on the road to the Detroit Lions.
Divisional rivals. I think we'll lose that, sadly. Much as I would love to win it, I think it'll be close. I think we'll be closer than we think, but I think we might lose because it's on the road.
Okay, so then week 12 is another NFC North road game as you take on the Vikings.
I think we might lose that too.
Okay.
See, I'm being more realistic this time, because I'm not saying win every game, even though my heart is screaming every time you say a name. I'm like, win. No, we're going to lose that.
No, I mean, so far going into week 13, Bar, you're currently at a 5-7 record, so it's maybe not the best start, but maybe you'll get some wins further
not
on.
The worst.
Yeah. Week 14 is your first week off the bye, and you're at home to the Lions.
We'll win that.
Okay.
We'll win.
Now, week 15, a game I think everyone will hope you win, because you're playing Deshaun Watson and the Cleveland Browns on the road.
Love to say we'll win that one, but I don't think so. I think it might be a lose. I just think it'll be tough. It'll be too tough.
Okay, so week 16, it's on Christmas Eve, so 3:25 p.m. local time. It's about 8:25 and 9:25 p.m. For those watching in the UK, which is a great prospect. Is against the Cardinals.
Win for us, definitely.
And I know it's obviously going to be on quite late on Christmas Eve. Are you going to be watching that game? I don't know how your Christmas plans work.
I'm going to try my best to watch that game, without a doubt. I'm going to try my best.
Yeah, I can imagine. I mean, we're playing on that day, and I believe we're playing, I think, the same time, I want to say, against the Cowboys. I think. I'm not too sure, but I know for me, I do normally go out Christmas Eve, so I may have to one year, especially now with DAZN not giving the option of downloading games, I might have to stay at home, which I've done actually since COVID. I've done quite a lot actually, because most of my friends have moved out anyway. So I might just stay in. Speaking of which, New Year's Eve is week 17, 12 p.m. local time, 6 p.m. in the UK, as you take on in Soldier Field your final home game of the season against the Falcons.
That's a win.
Okay, so it means you're 8-8 going into your final week, which is on the road at Lambeau Field against the Green Bay Packers.
Right. I'm going to say win. What the hell? Let's do this. Come on.
That's an amazing run down the stretch.
Come on. 9-8. Here we go.
So 9-8 will get you at the moment. So you are our 27th guest and our 26th team of the series, and you are currently our joint 19th most optimistic fans. I don't know whether that's glass half full, glass half empty, but you've only got one, two, three, four, five fans who are less optimistic than you. So you've got, Graham Henderson, our Texans fan. We've got Jeff Reinbold on behalf of the Raiders. And we've got Rams fan Sam Andrews, and then Cardinals fans Sam Morgan and Oliver Kent, only there behind you. So, yeah, I think that shows maybe how optimistic our fans have been. But the fact you're 9-8 and only 5 people have had less than you, I think that shows the kind of hope that people have around their team before the season starts.
Hope over expectation, mate. That's what it is. But anything above 7 wins, I'll take this year. I'll take that as tangible signs of progress. I'd be disappointed with anything less. 7 wins or less, I probably would be disappointed with, and anything above that, I would take without a doubt. So I think that seems like a reasonable, expectation as a Bears fan. You just want to see progress, both on both sides of the playing side of things.
So that is where we will end the podcast for today. So once again, thank you, Luke, for coming on.
Thank you, mate. It's been good to chat again. I've loved it. Yeah, really loved it.
Great stuff. And we are getting Luke on again. Just before the season starts, we're doing our annual season predictions episode with Steve, our 3rd edition of it. So hopefully Luke will win this year.
Come on, you know it. Come on, I'm due a win.
Yeah,
that's all I'm going to tell you.
You last both times, I think. So you're due to be at least 2nd place.
What I'm going to have to do is like have Steve's arm up his back or something, and just make sure he doesn't give any good predictions. I think that's the key in all of this.
Yeah. Make sure he has the Colts winning the NFC South. Make sure he has, Buccaneers winning the NFC South.
Or just gag him so he can't give any wins, and I'll just pretend to be him. I'll be like, lose.
Eagles last in the NFC East.
I think he'd love that.
Yeah, I think he would. I think he'd enjoy the challenge. But yeah,
definitely.
That is where we will end the podcast for today. So this has been the Across the Pod NFL podcast, our Chicago Bears season preview, and we will see you guys our next season preview.